I was working at McDonnell Douglas for engineering support, but it's the cars. Oh, you're an engineer.
Your first visit to GReddy, right?
Instead of an interview, you're like, when can you start? So, my life would have been, much different.
Do you think they're like Japanese tuners can learn from like the American way of tuning?
For sure. 2,000 plus 3,000 horsepower, where Japan, they don't do that anymore.
Mr. Kenji Sumino.
Yes, sir.
President of GReddy Performance Products. Thank you for being on the Creative Drive.
I'm honored to be here.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So you and I, we kind of see each other at the events and bump into each other. And I just reminded you that you were on a previous podcast episode.
With Sam, yes. Yeah. That was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you told us that time that like how you got like sort of like scouted by GReddy, right? You were like still
Not
in
really
university.
Yeah. So I was working at McDonnell Douglas for engineering support, and I was still going to college, Cal Poly Pomona for mechanical engineering. And I went in as a customer. So I ordered, at the time I had a S14 240SX. And I wanted a trussed exhaust. So I ordered it from Dynamic Autosports in Irvine.
Right.
And they had the NA spec, but the turbo, which is 80 mil, they had to special order it because they don't stock that here. So I got that ordered, and it took forever. And, I used to just, hang out at Dynamic and, hey, can you check on this? I'm like, oh, they're down the street. You're Japanese. Why don't you go over there and check it out too? So I went over there and then got to meet some of the guys there, started talking. And at the time, there was a kind of separate operation called Club GReddy that was operated by Hideo Tomitaka. So I started talking to him in Japanese, and, oh, you're Japanese, and what do you do? And like, well, I'm engineering support over at McDonnell Douglas. I've been there for 3 years, but, it's the cars, and I actually order, the trussed exhaust, and been waiting for over 3 months and, trying to, kind of, figure out when it's going to be coming in. And Dynamic told me, just go over there and check it out. So went over there. Oh, you're an engineer. Would you be interested in working for us? And they were just about to launch. So that Club GReddy department was in charge of R&D for GReddy Performance product. And they're just launching that. So they were looking for somebody that could, wrench. And, so before that, I was already, with Miles Bautista, racing, drag racing Hondas. EF was the first car that I had.
And also bilingual as well.
Yeah.
Hey, do you really think that cafe Wi-Fi is safe? Well, think again. Public Wi-Fi can be a hacker's playground. With the man-in-the-middle attack, cyber criminals set up fake networks like cafe-free Wi-Fi. Intercept everything you do online. They can do that. They can steal passwords, spy on your emails, and intercept the data you send and receive. The fix is something like NordVPN. Encrypt your internet traffic so hackers get nothing. Not your logins, not your banking info. Your emails are safe, and not even those Fast and the Furious memes. So right now you can grab an exclusive NordVPN deal plus 4 extra months for free. Just head to nordvpn.com/racer and stay protected. It's risk-free, and you get a 30-day money-back guarantee. So stay safe, keep those hackers away, and sign up now. Back to the show.
But, at the time, throughout, probably from junior high all the way to college, didn't really need to speak Japanese. So it kind of, went on without like really speaking. I did go to Japanese school up to Koni, so, high school level, the second year. But it was just kind of like a place for all the Japanese guys to, kids to kind of hang out. So I didn't really study, didn't do homework kind of thing. I wish I'd had.
So you went to like Saturday school?
Saturday school, yeah.
But Asahi or?
Asahi Gakuen, yes, yeah. So, it's just, but, I grew up, first language was Japanese. My parents spoke Japanese, so at home spoke Japanese. But, going back to the story where, I was growing up, I was more into airplanes, and I wanted to become a pilot maybe, but my parents like, well, you got bad eyes, you can't be a pilot, But I'm always interested in planes. So that's how I kind of got into the mechanical engineering side, and maybe wanted to go into aerospace industry, but always taking apart stuff. It's just, I don't even know how long. Probably this is when I was in Japan still. So third grade, second grade, third grade, I would have screwdriver and wrench in my hand, and I'll start taking apart stuff. And just always interested of how things work and how they're put together. And, at the time we don't have internet. So, now even I geek out and, channels like how it's made and, just kind of spend hours just watching how things are made. But, I would always take apart stuff, working stuff. It started off with, oh, this is broken. I'm going to throw it away. Oh, let me take it apart first.
Right.
But then I'll start, taking apart the working part. And now my dad used to always just, yell at me because sometimes it won't work anymore.
You take it apart and it just,
But then I'll start to learn like how, okay, it's broken. Let me try to fix it. So even around the house today, like, my kids will be like, hey, this is not working anymore.
Right.
Now try to fix it. Oh, it's working. No, we saved a lot of money now, So, just, I'm kind of going off to that, but just interested in always kind of hands-on. And, with the aerospace, it was more the government military contract side of things with C-17. And it just kind of got slow. It was more like drafting, at the time again. Old school, no CAD. So everything was just ink and, Mylar and just, updating the engineering, documents and things like that. And, it just got really slow. And at the time, with Miles, I would be going out, to his shop in North Hollywood, almost like all-nighters working on his drag car, and then got into my personal car. But, always just, hands-on. So my passion kind of shifted from aerospace to more cars. And, just on the side, I was just kind of, helping friends, fix up their cars, lowering it or putting intakes and things like that. But, as I kind of got more into it with Miles, with drag racing, we would go to, at the time, Terminal Island in Long Beach. Then Frank Choi started the Battle of the Imports. Won't talk too much about the street racing side of things, but, just kind of got into that more and more. So my passion really shifted to that. And when he mentioned that, like, pretty much instead of an interview, he's like, when can you start? And
this was your first visit to
pretty much,
GReddy,
GReddy, in Irvine. They were just down the street from Irvine Auto Center. A little bit small place, but there was nice people there. Kirk Miller was the GM at the time, and there were a couple of there was another guy, R&D, that Kirk brought over from New Jersey.
Miller went to AEM after that, right?
Well, after GReddy, he started his own shop called Performance Consultants. And I used to go help there too. And he was building Frank Choi's FD there.
Right.
So just kind of learning from him was great experience too. But, at the time, pretty much like, when can you start? If you're going to come work for us, we'll send you to Trust for, a few months.
They sent you right away though,
Right away.
Yeah.
So I got hired in, I think it was like August, like early August of 95. And before, I think I went out there around November. So it was perfect timing because Mr. Hayakawa, the founder and president at the time, said, if you come out right now, we're building Tokyo Auto Salon car. And also Yatabe speed trial before the Auto Salon. And we're building a brand new R33, which turned out to be the S-Rock. So that's the first, project that I got to work on. So, I couldn't pass up on that opportunity. So I dropped everything, and like, okay, I'm doing this. And my parents was kind of not happy with it because, I had my foot in the door with, Douglas and
stable job,
and now it's Boeing,
right.
And I do have a few guys that still work there, from, 30 plus years ago.
Yeah.
So, my life would have been, much different today. But I mean, I'm pretty happy with what, we've accomplished, and we're still doing what we're doing and doing what I love to do. So, I'm very fortunate to.
When you were growing up here, right? And, we didn't have internet.
No.
So how are you getting all of your like JDM information to tune your cars? Was it all like from the option and the, magazines at the
so
Japanese source?
So this is even before the term JDM, right?
Yeah.
So the early 90s, growing up in South Bay, Torrance, California, up and through high school, I was just skating. I was a skater. Until I got my license, I had no interest in cars. But when my brother had the Accord Coupe LXI, I think so, the pop-up headlights, and he started kind of fixing that up and like, oh, what are you doing? Kind of thing. I just go off and, go skate. But when it got to my turn to get my driver's license, then, I started noticing like some of the guys at school having, pretty cool cars, but, one thing was like a Daihatsu Charade hatchback. Okay. I thought it was pretty cool, you know. But I started looking into cars and something affordable, and, a Civic EF at the time. Hondas were really popular then. So like, I think I almost bought a Toyota. What's that one? There was a hatchback back in the early 90s. Was it FX something? More boxy hatchback. So we almost got that.
Okay.
But then I think I kind of did a little bit of research, and Honda was the thing, right? Yeah. So like hanging out at Gardena, there's a lot of, we used to call them the SJs, right? Yeah. I won't get into the actual, but so I started seeing a lot of that. So that whole influence was, got me into the Hondas.
Right.
And, started off more with audio and things like that. But just kind of started seeing fixed up cars in, South Bay, and wanted to lower it, get wheels and sound system, but it was a DX automatic. So it was kind of boring, and I kind of, later on I kind of regretted. Everybody else started getting the SI with the manual and upgrading throttle bodies and getting headers and going faster and faster, and, I'm putzing along in the automatic, and I would pop it into neutral and then pop it back into gear to just let the, the tire chirp and things, that's all I could do, right? But then one day I was hanging out at Toy Sport in Gardena, trying to see what else I could do to my Honda. Yeah. And that's when I met Miles Bautista. Yeah. So, if you follow the import drag racing back in the day, he was one of the pioneers of going, pretty fast. 12 second was like the big deal back then, right? And I still keep in touch with him, but that's when he said, just swap the motor. Yeah. Put in a different motor, and change the transmission, put the clutch pedal in there, and you could depending on how much money you have, kind of thing, but that's pretty much how I started. And this was 91. So it was right after high school. I graduated in 90. I'm aging myself right now, but
and then, so you got the job at GReddy, and then they sent you to Japan. Yeah. And that S-Rock car is now a legend.
Yes.
A legendary car, which we can get back to later. But did you already know that this was like a special project that you were working on?
So I didn't have the details. Right. They just told me auto salon and something called Yatabe, like, speed trials, but it was a big deal kind of thing. Well, the Yatabe, I kind of saw like the videos in Option Magazine, and, they've been, a lot of manufacturers been testing their cars, and then they take it to auto salon and display that. So.
Yeah. So yeah, Tab is this, it's like this big loop track
with
where
the
they do
bank.
the high speed testing, and like guys like Tarzan Yamada and they would
Daijiro
Inada would do these like crazy tests in these
0 to 300
tuner cars, right, which was kind of crazy, because like Tarzan got in a big accident too. Remember, he like flipped that Sylvia. I think it was an S13 or something, right? So so you went to Japan, and there you're working on your R33.
Right. So that was a great experience, and they were actually teaching me how pretty much trust ways of building cars or building each products, how they test like the intercoolers, turbo, how to prototype.
So trust
exhaust.
is the name of GReddy in Japan.
Yes.
Yeah, it's basically the same thing. Right?
A lot of people get confused. Okay, what's trust and what's GReddy? Yeah. So trust is the company name, and GReddy was and still is today, but like a sub brand of the trust company. So GReddy was more the turbo related products, like the turbochargers, intercoolers, comes from term word great and eddy, kind of like the the eddy current, spinning motion, so that's how they came up with that name GReddy.
I see.
And there was also back then Gracer, which was the aero package.
Right.
Then Grex was the suspension and brakes, and today we don't really use that brand anymore. But then GReddy was kind of stuck around. And when Trust came to U.S. in 1994, they were trying to register Trust, but at the time, Mr. Gasket in the automotive industry was already using Trust for their oil filter or like those maintenance type item. So it was already used. So they decided to use one of the brand name GReddy as the company name for U.S. market.
I see.
And became GReddy Performance Products Inc.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Weren't you put on the Le Mans project too, like right away?
No. So I was very familiar with Trust because of the whole Le Mans project that they had. So from late 80s to 1993, they were campaigning from Porsche to like 962.
Right.
I think they ran that for like 3 years, and also the Group C, All Japan, race, and then went to Le Mans with it. And then 93, 94 was they started racing the Toyota Group C car.
Right.
So right when I heard about the opportunity to go to Trust and work for GReddy Performance, that already popped in my head. I speak English, Japanese. Maybe I have an opportunity to go to Le Mans, and they were just getting ready for JZA80 Supra. It had the TRD set up, and so I was hoping possibly that would be a deal for me, but they crashed it in Japan. Okay. So that whole Le Mans program went away before I even got there. So
got it.
I lost that opportunity, and that's still on my bucket list to go.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, they were pretty known for that Group C program, where aftermarket performance company going to a renowned like race event like Le Mans. That's a pretty great accomplishment. And I think the last race was 94.
Okay.
Yeah, and I started working there in 95, so I missed it by 1 year. But some of the guys that went to Le Mans are still there at Trust.
Okay.
R&D team.
I see.
Racing team became, some of them got absorbed in the R&D side. So, some of the guys are still there.
And how long were you in Japan this first time?
So they said 3 months, but ended up being about 6 months.
Okay.
So towards the back half of my stay there, they told me to go out to all the satellite office and go to visit the shops and kind of see the sales side of things, and also get to see the Japanese market and just visit all the tuner shops and kind of get, better idea of what this industry is about and how Trust runs, their operation.
I see.
And so I got a great experience. I think that's, right off, I was 24 at the time, and just probably the best experience, to this day of, what I had, so like, there's a lot of guys that's been there for many years, and everybody, even all the executives and president, like calling me Kenji. And that's pretty rare in Japan, right? Where you call somebody in their first name. Like, man, they call you Kenji, like you're going to be somebody maybe in the future kind of thing. Or they'll be like, like, who are you? Why are they calling you Kenji? You just started, you're like the FNG, around here. But, it's just, from that, I think I was able to kind of build a relationship with all the staff in Japan as well. And, I'm a pretty private guy, so I don't really talk that much, but, just, I was able to get great experience and come back and, do what we do, and the first project in Japan was that R33, but first thing I came back was, developing turbo kits for Hondas. And for the mid 90s to early 2000s, the Hondas, Honda product was the bread and butter for GReddy Performance and any industry, every company here in US. But we were able to create a bolt-on CARB certified street legal turbo kit, which we got SEMA new product award that year. And it's all that experience with helping Miles Bautista, and racing and blowing up a bunch of motors and, with the technology that Trust had with the, the fuel management type of thing. Where, before we were just using like the fish tank check valves on the map sensor to trick the ECU and just, raise the fuel pressure. But Trust came out with the piggyback unit, I think one of the first ever in the, market to introduce like a piggyback ECU to better control the injectors and things like that. So, we were able to get CARB certification and, introduce more of a street legal turbo kit, which, I still get requests for today, but...
that was a U.S. first launch product though, right? I mean, it wasn't like...
before I started working for GReddy, they had a Miata turbo kit.
I see. But the Civic one was a U.S. launch, right?
Yes.
What did the guys in Japan say when you said you wanted to develop a turbo for the Civic?
That program or the project was already discussed.
Oh, it was already happening?
So, I kind of went in perfect timing because I already had experience with it. And, at the time, Trust already had cast manifold. They offered cast manifold for CRX and Civic already. So we just took that and then kind of, packaged it. And so it's not like I developed the whole thing. It was already kind of somewhat, developed. But going through the CARB certification part of it was, I had, part in that more than anything.
I think when I first met you, you were still really focusing on the engineering part of the business, right?
Yes. So I got hired for the R&D department. So
and throughout
when I had hair.
I don't know if you had hair.
Pretty sure.
Maybe you did. What, like looking back at those early days, like how did you sort of like get into like all the other things that GReddy's doing now? Like, now you've got into motorsports and Pikes Peak. And
that's pretty recent, within the past, decade, maybe, I don't know, but
15 years maybe,
15,
right?
Yeah.
What was the first motorsport that you guys started here in the U.S.? Was that the rally?
No, Time Attack.
Oh, Time Attack.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Takeshi Aizawa was also part of our R&D team, and we always had relationship with auto manufacturer like Honda, Nissan. When they were here, we would borrow their cars, so they'll lend us our car, and we'll build a SEMA project cars.
Yeah.
And there's always pretty much always like a street car or show car type of, build. And we never really raced it. And 2011, 2010 maybe is when, we started talking to people about Scion. Like we already built, different SEMA project, but is there an opportunity to maybe race these things? So when the TC came out, it's more, they wanted to kind of push the performance side of things. And they gave us an opportunity to build one, take it to SEMA, and then the following year, maybe enter into a time attack. So we did Redline time attack with that.
Right.
So pretty much all local, California, and we also did around in Arizona. But Takeshi was more in charge of building that car and also driving it. So he was having a blast.
Yeah.
And then we were able to take that to Pikes Peak even. So that was a great experience. So that's pretty much the beginning of like us getting really into more the motorsport side. Up until then, I think it was more focused on product development, taking it to SEMA. And again, we talk about, internet, but, back then we didn't have the internet. So we would build a car and then have everything scheduled around SEMA.
Right.
So product launch, dealer programs, we'll go and take it to SEMA. And that's when we introduce, the products and, do all that. So where am I going with this again? I kind of lost train of thought there. But,
but like how you started motorsports, right?
Yeah. So up until then, it was more that focus and moving products and, for Japan to develop the produce the product, then we bring it back here and, sell it.
Yeah.
So that was more of the focus. And I think just really networking and just expanding, our business and, trying, it all came down when we filed Chapter 11 bankruptcy in 2008.
Okay.
Yeah. So right when the
financial
crisis. Right. So, and that was all from Trust had, loans and relationship with Japanese bank over here in the U.S. bank branch as well.
Yeah.
So we had this loan thing that kind of fell apart and we were kind of forced to, because our parent company at the time, defaulted because of the banks were doing risk management and they couldn't renew the financing. And so from there, that was like, well, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
Right. I was still kind of like managing R&D and a little bit of administration type, where we opened up a facility in New Jersey in 2005 to kind of handle East Coast. And also at the time we were handling European market as well. So, setting that up, and they sent me out to the East Coast in 2005 to go set it up, talk to the lawyers, get the business license, and hire guys and train them. Like, wait a minute, I'm R&D.
Yeah.
I'm handling all the product development here. Like, okay, well, you're going to be assistant GM now. Go over there, kind of thing. So that 2005 is when I started going into more the management side of thing. And when that 2008 hit, like took us by surprise, everybody here, the Irvine office, like, we don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
What do you mean we're going, like, we're doing so good?
Yeah.
So since we had the New Jersey office, we had a lot of inventory.
Yeah.
And the sales are still good. And Japan kept on sending containers after the other, so we were getting like probably 3 40-foot containers a month type of business.
Okay, yeah.
So, at the time, the target was pretty up there.
Right.
And with that, just with the banks, risk management and things like that. But, for us, we were doing great.
Yeah.
So luckily because we had that inventory, we were able to sell and just take care of the
Keep
loan.
the cash flow going.
And take care of our own bankruptcy within 6 months or so.
Right.
So we were kind of in the clear on that. But, with that, I think it was a wake-up call for us. Like, we need to really get out.
Yeah.
And at the time, up until then, all the magazines, we had the back cover advertising, and trust used to pay for all that, right? So cut zero.
Right.
What are we going to do? Perfect timing. Facebook,
Yeah.
social media, free advertising, right? So that kind of took on. So we need to do whatever we can, and also what saved us back then was R35 introduction of R35.
Right. 2007 came out.
Yeah. And we 2000. So we got one 2009, even though parent company Trust was like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
It's like, well, we need to do something. So we started developing products, and we'll take it out to the drag strip and test the products. And so Trust kind of got on board. So they made the first bolt-on turbo kit for that platform. And, before when that came out, even Japan market, like you can't do anything to this car.
Yeah. That was a whole...
You can't tune it.
That was a deal, right?
You can't touch it.
Yeah.
Look at us now.
Right.
Some of the guys are doing crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And, like the Texas 2K and like 2,000 plus horsepower. So, that's what really saved us. And then, just everybody got kind of caught on. At first it was HKS and GReddy doing stuff, but then all the US shops and brands started catching on, and investors, spending more money into it. And now they're at 2,000, horsepower level. Like, we can't be doing that anymore,
So did you guys just say, screw it, we're just going to do it? Or was there some kind of like, okay to do it? How did that happen? Because at the beginning, you're right. Everybody was like, "You're not supposed to touch this car," right?
Well, some of the tuners, even Japan, Kaneko-san at Neko, started, trying to hack into the system, and it was still prototype, but I got the wind of it, so I contacted them, and we just kind of, just to survive, we had to do something, So just. GReddy's out of business, kind of thing. It's like, no, we're not. We got to show them that we're still here and, be active. And so that car was what we pretty much, took. And it was just a survival mode, pretty much. And luckily, through some of the development and, partnering up with other, technical partners, and we're able to put something together and then, go racing with it, drag racing with it, more like private tuning session, but to be able to kind of show the performance and, kind of show our capability of our Irvine office, because Japan was pretty much on their own survival mode, and we were just left on our own. It was like, whatever you do, just do what you can, kind of thing, and they just kind of left us alone. And
they had to kind of like take care of themselves, right?
Pretty much.
They didn't have the resources to take care of you guys.
No, right. But at the same time, our income, we're able to, kind of operate here. So, luckily, again, with the inventory, and we had, decent cash flow. It's like, okay, well, we're going to try.
Is that were you already president at that time?
So when the bankruptcy happened, there was a managing director that was sent from Japan.
I see.
So when we were forced to do the emergency Chapter 11 here, he got into a fight with the owner back then.
Oh, okay.
Like, what are you talking about? It's all because of trust, da-da-da-da-da. And he said, you know what? I'm going back to Japan. I quit. So he left.
Oh.
Right?
Okay.
He's like, Kenji, I'm sorry. I got to go. Kind of thing.
Yeah.
And this is still going through the whole bankruptcy.
Right.
So talking to the lawyers, the trustee's office, and they needed a signer.
Yeah.
He was the authorized signer. He left. So Japan was like, well, should we send somebody here? It's like, if he's not speaking English, I'm not going to translate all this and then report back to, so I guess you're going to have to take care of it, Kenji. Yeah. So I became the president as a signer, to handle all that. So it was like a crash course, MBA crash course, so to speak. And like, I'm more of the engineering side. So, that was
Was that a challenging?
Challenging, but very interesting. I think that, and through that, I had a great team as well. My accounting manager at the time was the greatest. Anything the lawyers needed, all the financials, and, she took care of it. So, I didn't really have to do much on that side. And, I had a great, sales team as well. So, I had a great team back then to really survive. And I think mentally, around that time, I was training for marathon.
Yeah.
So 2007 to 9, I was, running marathons, LA marathons,
Yeah.
So I think mentally, and physically, I was able to kind of, cope with that.
Right.
So I think it was, another, chapter in my life where, it was a good experience. It was a great opportunity to hit that reset button and then really take off to a next level for the company.
Yeah.
And that's when, started being active with those type of, R35 builds and showing performance, and got into kind of get recognized by, other brands. And I mean, when, we approached Scion, like, oh, okay, well, if you're able to do that with the GT-R, like maybe you could build a car to go racing. So that's pretty much how we kind of started.
Yeah.
So that's like already 20 years into, here US, and, the past 10, 15 years is when we got into more the motorsport side. But
and the brand became stronger, I think, like after that. Like just like looking at from the outside, I feel like you guys hit there's a resurgence of like what you guys have been doing since then.
Yeah, I mean, from outside looking in, maybe. I mean, I mean, when before that, with the market,
I'm sure it was rough.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Being in the inside.
Yeah, and the market took a dive, and it's just so. I mean, the peak was still the early 2000s, to mid 2000s. But yeah, I mean, we try to do what we can, and we're having fun with it too. Yeah. I'm more enthusiast before anything. Yeah. So, things that we're doing, we're enjoying in the team that we have. Yeah. They all love what we do. So, that's the focus, for me to kind of push and bring in new ideas or bring in new partners or new projects to kind of keep it going, to make it fun for everybody, to have that, pride within the company too. So, and I think the biggest thing is the social media. I think that really helped, really reach out to all the people that do follow us. Right. And, that just made the biggest, if you're not really into it, you're not going to pick up the magazine, but with the social media, now you got more exposure, then they'll start picking up, stuff to read.
It appears in your feed, right?
Right,
so
right.
You don't have to actively go pick up a magazine and search for anything.
Yeah, right. So I think that's what really made the big difference. So the timing with, the reset that we were able to do, and, the ideas. And so, right when the Facebook came out, I mean, that's around that time. And we were kind of early in that. Yeah. Like, what are you guys doing? What is that? Kind of thing. And I didn't even know too much about it, but Mike, he's been with us for a long time. He came in a year after. We're in the same racing crew, back then. Went to Cal Poly as well. So, he took on that, hey, we should be doing something like this, so been good. Yeah.
How about the drift program?
Drift program, yeah. So after the time attack, then got into supporting Gordon with his Scion XD with the Rally America. Yeah, that was a blast. Yeah, to this day, Rally is my favorite.
That's what
to experience.
That's what TJ was saying too.
Yeah. That's the great. I mean, I think it was the team too. Yeah, Gary Castillo, Ben Schwartz, Phil Chase, and Gordon. Right, the master chef. Yeah, trackside. Yeah,
make
master
sure everybody's
chef.
Like fed.
Yeah, it's amazing what he could do in the trailer. Yeah, but that was the best experience. And then from that effort, we were able to get the drifting program, the very first FRS introduction. So with that FRS launch and Kang Gushi driving for us, and it just took off. And even today, like yesterday, still working on his car. Yeah,
you guys sort of like let Ken do his own program with his own team, but are you guys like now more coming back to being more involved in the program?
Yes. So 2019 is when he really took over the ownership of the team. But we've been racing together since 2012.
Yeah.
But when it went from Scion racing to Toyota racing, and I just kind of had to focus on the business side of things. And, with Ken, his dad closed his shop, Gushi Gushi Auto.
Yeah.
And he wanted to kind of figure out what he wants to do, and not just as a driver, but like, hey, would you be interested in taking over the ownership of the team? And, so he was down for that. So, but we will still support him.
Yeah.
So, from even when he took over the ownership, we still, provided with him products and, if he needed the dyno, come to tune on our dyno. And just again, recently, since last year, we launched our 2J engine program and RB26. So he was on the 1G V6 2 years ago, but because we had that and we were still supplying other products for parts sponsorship for Ken, like, why don't we put 2J back in there?
Okay.
So that's when we got more involved again.
So
to support.
2J's on the current car?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, since last year.
I see.
Yeah. So, with that, we had 2J before when we had the ownership of the team, and we learned a lot from that as well. And, we developed the complete engine package, which, we introduced 3 SEMAs ago. And with that, we decided to support him a little bit more, engine package, turbo, and, other, supporting products, and kind of get him to, be more successful. I would love to see him back on the podium. So,
he's been close.
Yeah.
He's been, well, I mean, he's been on the podium several times, but he got second place overall a couple years ago.
That was 2015. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Was that 10 years ago already? Oh my God. Yeah.
So, he got, I don't, again, my memory's going, but, he won Irvine a few years ago.
Yeah.
So,
I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah, when he won Irvine. Yeah. That was,
I was climbing the fence.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I would love to kind of, have him, be a little bit more successful. And I think he struggled over the years too. And, Formula D, Dai, Yoshihara, just Formula D, as all the teams, really work hard and try to get to all the rounds, and off season they have to rebuild the car, and it takes a lot to go through that, and even financially, and without like good supporting sponsors, they're like out of pocket, so that's a big struggle. Even like guys that won championships like Dai or Michael Essa, or they don't really have as much budget as maybe other top tier teams. So, I think, just having the right, partners is the key, and having the crew member to support that. So I think, Ken has been doing it since
the beginning.
Yeah, beginning. So how many years that they made that announcement the other day, but
what was it, 25 years?
Yeah, right? Yeah.
I remember the 10-year anniversary.
Yeah, right. But I mean, Formula D to me is it's kind of like a love and hate. For me, like building and working on the car.
Pikes Peak is kind of like that to a lot of people too, though.
Yeah, oh yeah,
right.
Yeah, if you make it up the hill or not, all that work, So like our friends over at Evasive too, they've done, and it's just. But I guess that's also part of the fun. Like the struggle ends up being like, oh, remember that? Back then.
Yeah, you talk
remember
about
last year.
Yeah.
So at the time, it's like, man, enough of this. I'm done with this. I don't know how many times, like over the years, like I'm done with this.
Yeah.
Where I guess any motorsport, you put in that effort, and then if it does well, we all celebrate. Yeah. But if it doesn't, and it's especially Formula D, you put in all that effort, and it's somewhat subjective, judged, and but to a lot of the guys, like okay, how did he win that? You know, wait, we lost that? Or our qualifying point is so much lower than that run kind of thing. So, you know, but it's, you know, I think the whole, it's a great event, especially for the fans, and it's impressive what they do.
Yeah.
I can't do what they, you know, these drivers does, and I have no interest either. I like more the mechanical side of things, that, you know, and you know, that's what keeps me going. Yeah. Like the whole inspiration. Like if you look at Steph's builds, Papadakis racing, amazing. Yeah. Then you go to like, you know, JR's team, you know, and then you see drivers like that, you know, and Ken is capable of doing the same. Yeah. So I want to provide him with a car that he could be, you know, competing with, you know, these guys, and, you know, he's been there. Yeah. You know, so it's just like, you know, Formula One. All these drivers are great drivers, but you have that one, you know, car that just outperforms everybody. Yeah. But if that same driver goes to a different car, you know, it's not the same thing, right? Yeah. So it's kind of same thing where I wanted to try to provide and help Ken with, you know, a better car. Yeah. You know, especially on the power side. Suspensions wise, I have no clue. You know, so this year we got Chris Eimer on board.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. Oh, good.
So he wasn't in Long Beach because he had commitment with his family to be in Hawaii.
Oh, okay.
Lucky him.
Okay, I didn't see him. Yeah, I didn't see him.
But from next round, he's on board.
Okay.
So good. He has experience. Yeah. You know, you know him very well.
He built Dai's champion car. Yeah.
So you know, with that, I think, you know, he's he got pretty good team going, and just the mindset and the whole vibe at Long Beach, starting, you know, weeks before, just preparing the car, and his just mentally he was ready. Yeah. And I think the car's, you know, ready too, and it's good to see, and that's the you know, that feeling with that, instead of like always worried, or if we have enough budget to be able to do what, you know, the top tier teams, you know, all that stress and that worry in his head is not going to be good as a driver, you know. So I think if he could just show up and, you know, drive and focus on that, I think that'll be good for him. Yeah. Even though he's still driving his truck and trailer, you know, around the country.
He was still wrenching, you know, when I saw him at Long Beach too. Yeah.
So yeah, even weeks before. So he brought the car to us about 3 weeks prior, and they said, "Okay, well, let's go through it." But he already prepped it at his garage, and then he brought it over. And, okay, we're gonna just check over the engine, refresh it, put it back together. If you know, do, you know, some of the updates. And he was there every day, every day. Yeah. And, you know, right now he's living in Carson, so that's a long drive. Yeah. And, you know, he'll bring and come out and, you know, work on the car together. Yeah. So I think he has good understanding of his own car, but at the same time, like, we'll put in our feedback and suggestions, and he listened to that, and, like, you know, we'll put together something that's competitive this year. Hopefully.
So from one builder to another, like you mentioned, like Steph, right? Steph Papadakis. Yeah. What makes his cars like so like high performing?
I think it's just the whole experience over the years. So import
He's
drag
another
racing,
drag guy, right?
So remember when we met up in Japan with Steph, and you took us to sushi in Roppongi?
Oh my God, my memory.
So I remember that.
You remember that?
Yeah. Your wife and Steph and I.
Really?
We're going to Roppongi for sushi? That's the first time I've ever gone to Roppongi. Oh my God. And you invited us.
Really?
That's the year when we took his drag Civic to Auto Salon.
Okay.
And
are you sure it was me?
Yes, for sure. Yeah. Oh, you don't remember that?
I don't remember that at
but
all.
But I didn't remember, you know, the podcast with Sam.
Okay, so we went to
but
sushi?
no,
okay.
So Steph, so I knew Steph before I started working for GReddy He used to go
through import drag racing.
yeah,
right?
to Terminal Island. He would blow up his engine every run, every weekend, and he'll come back with new,
Right.
you know. And me and Miles had turbocharged Hondas, and he had just NA nitrous. And he used to go, well, wait, putting that unreliable turbo system on your car. You're the one that's blowing it up every weekend kind of thing. So, we've known each other for a while, but I think just over the years, I mean, he was the pioneer of like the Honda import drag racing and just the first to be in the 9s to the 8, right? This is like 97?
Yeah, right.
Somewhere around there. 88? I mean, 98?
Yeah.
But at the time, like Sean Carlson, Sean Carlson was building amazing cars, just totally out of the box thinking and come up with, amazing builds. And I think just seeing all that, like, I think Steph really got, inspired by that. And, his cars are always clean. Yeah. Every round, it looks like brand new car. Yeah. Like it's every round could be a livery unveiling kind of, so it's pretty amazing. Like so that's like a lot of the inspiration that I had, going through and watching other teams, even like JTP, right? Right. He always had clean cars. Yeah. So I think it just Steph being in the industry for so long and seeing a lot of things, and he was over at AEM garage for a long time too. So John, he used to always support him, and he just always had a good network of guys, from back then drag racing days. Yeah. So he'll take ideas from that, motorsport, bring it over to FD. Yeah. And just kind of mix and just, off-roading, to, drag racing, all mixed. That's pretty much drifting is almost, right? There's track grip and drag and all into one. And, I pick his brain here and there, and he'll, call me and, pick my brain here and there. But, it's great to see that. Yeah. And that's like I think a lot of people kind of look at him and see what he does and, get ideas from. So.
You've gone, GReddy has done a bunch of like cool collaborations too. Yeah. Like how is that you? Like how does that happen?
Yeah. So Kevin, who also helps Ken manage the team too and gather like sponsors for him. And also he's the spotter for Ken too. Kevin got on board with us 2015. He used to work for Mark Arsenal Illust. Oh, okay. SoCal. Yep. Right by the lab. So when I had an idea of, so when we were doing the motorsport, I noticed that everybody wants the team gear. Yeah. Right. It's like, oh, do you have any merchandise? So we started making, and at this time, like tactical gear type of. Was that
the Boost Brigade?
Boost stuff? Brigade, yes. Right.
Do you still do that?
Not as much. We do have few, but we haven't done too much. We should. I get a lot of people asking for that.
I was going to wear my Boost Brigade hat.
But so at the time, I wanted to kind of create something that we all want to wear, like on a daily basis, like a casual wear, not just all branded, like GReddy and just cars, So, Boost Brigade was something that, it all comes from my skating days, right? There was a Power Peralta, Boost, Bones Brigade, right?
Yeah. Oh, that's what it comes from.
Right. Bones Brigade. So like, and at the time, like, I was into kind of like the tactical gear. That was really popular back then too. 2015 around. Yeah. And I approached Mark Arsenal about this whole idea that I had, and maybe, they, collab with Illust and come up with like more, apparel. Yeah. Like that didn't really go through, but he introduced me to Kevin Sanchez. And we were trying to plan that with Illust brand, but kind of fell through. But then when Kevin left Illust, It's like, yeah, that Boost Brigade idea you had, I think it'll work, and you'll just do it under GReddy, and I'll help you. So that's when he came on board, created the merch, and then he started traveling with the team.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we sell merch out of the, and it, we got Boost Brigade.
You must have sold a lot of that stuff, didn't you?
Yeah, did pretty good.
Yeah.
So now that, you go to every round of Formula D, everybody's selling merch, right? But, it's from that, he's also Wicked Racing from back in the day. It's Honda guy.
Right.
So he knows about cars. And so he got into more of the motorsport program side as well, and kind of started managing a lot of that. So kind of like the motorsport management side for GReddy. And, but he has, because he come from, even before Illust, he was in the streetwear industry.
I see.
So he has a lot of contacts.
Right.
And then, so like a lot of the, I'm wearing one today. Huff.
Yeah.
Huff collab.
That's him too.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a cool collab.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, my kids are like, what? Like, how? They're not really into the car stuff, but I'm like, wait, Huff?
Huff.
So yeah, I mean, he has all these great ideas, and the network being in the streetwear side of things.
Did the shoes come from him too?
Yeah. So like his old time friend that happened to work there was like, hey, is there some opportunity? So this year, he has another friend at ASICS.
Oh yeah.
So you'll see ASICS on Kent's car.
Old guy's shoes.
Yeah. But it's good,
ASICS
it's good.
The way to go.
Yeah.
Now.
And then, they also have the lifestyle side of, so hopefully that will, they're providing us with some shoes, but maybe there might be, more collab there. But yeah, I mean, collab too, that's, it's more recent for us. And I think just partnering up with key, partners like that's kind of really keep us going.
Yeah. I think that's been really smart.
That's all, what we've been trying to really get our name out there and just, be active.
Yeah. Like expand your audience that way too. So the Huff fans can learn about GReddy and like what's GReddy, right?
So I just realized in the, past 10, 15 years that, just working with partners, that we don't handle, then, bring in the partners that could really, mutually benefit, and have a better reach. Before it was like, the old school Japanese mentality is like, we're going to do it ourselves.
Yeah.
It's like, you don't have to work with other brands, like why kind of thing. But I think it's more now, everybody see collab this, collab with who. And so, like that idea of like, what do we do that in the automotive industry and, just streetwear and, cars.
Yeah.
They're all the same,
audience, right?
Audience.
Yeah.
So it all works out. So you go to, event like Formula D, they're all worrying about, about the same thing. We're all, into, similar things.
Yeah.
So it works.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much how the whole Boost Brigade idea was like, wanted to get more into the streetwear side of things and then get them into the car scene.
Yeah.
And vice versa.
Right.
Kind of thing. So.
Yeah, one of the biggest collabs that you ever did was with Sung.
Yeah.
To develop that.
Yeah.
The Fugu Z.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was, and now, we're good friends.
Yeah.
And, even with that, just, before, like, I didn't used to really network, but then it just organically happens, right?
Yeah.
Like, just the way how I met you or, Sung just happened to, this 2005, happened to just post something on Instagram.
Yeah.
He was building a 240Z with a couple of his friends for like a weekend fun car. He doesn't play golf. He wanted something to have fun with, and cars was one thing that he could maybe connect with his friends and just go have fun.
Yeah.
So the whole idea was for him to build this 240Z to have fun with his buddies on the weekend.
And you didn't know him at the time?
No.
At all?
No. Right? I mean, I knew of him,
of course.
obviously. But Yeah, then he posted on his Instagram of a rendering from Mr. Mira Rocket Bunny white body kit on the 240Z.
Yeah.
It wasn't even developed yet.
Yeah.
Right. And he posted, is anybody in Southern California get a kit like this?
Yeah.
So Mike GReddy saw that post.
Right.
Like, hey, should we reach out to him?
Yeah.
And can you check with Mr. Mira if he could actually make that? Or you got to make it soon.
Yeah.
So pretty much we reached out, and luckily he responded. He saw our comment and our DM, and a week later he shows up to our office, and I'm calling Mr. Mira like Sung Kang, who? Right? Sung Kang, the Fast and the Furious. Why do the speed? What?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll make it.
Yeah.
So that turns into Sung's just. His homie's project car became a SEMA car for that year, right? So it just kind of blew up.
Kind of blew up, didn't it?
And then he doesn't even get to drive it and have fun with it anymore. He's still sitting at GReddy.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just, just that kind of like just by chance, right? Just kind of connected. And then through that, just that relationship that, over the years, I had the opportunity to go to UK, go to MTC, McLaren's, facility with him.
Right.
Then got to go to Goodwood. That's another bucket list. I never dreamt that I would be able to, go to that kind of event, and, just, opens up a lot of doors. And, he's working on a new movie. Yeah. And, there's it's more enjoying the relationship through the cars. Right. So I think pretty much all my friends are just through cars. Yeah. And I built, a few Hondas in the past few years, and go to Honda meets and meet, friends. And, I have a few close friends from that as well, you know. So just through the cars, I have, great relationships.
Yeah. What kind of new projects are you working on that you can talk about? Can we talk about the NSX already? I mean, I saw Dai posting that already.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know if I could talk about the detail, but yeah, we have a new Kaido house, Dai Yoshihara GReddy collab build that we're going to be working on. Kaido house. June's been doing great.
That brand and June, he is on fire.
He is.
Unstoppable.
Yeah. He's doing great things, and it's just really supporting the whole, the industry, and just really, catering to the enthusiasts. So it's not just the diecast, right? So now it's the full scale,
car culture, all scales, I think.
All scales, right? Basically. Hopefully this whole China tariff's not gonna, effective, but that's another, topic, maybe different discussion. But I mean, even though like he has following worldwide, he's in China right now, Beijing, I think, for a diecast convention.
He's a rock star.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the
great
lines,
mind.
The lines.
You need to get him in here for the creative drive.
We've been talking about it, but the guy's so busy.
Yeah,
right?
he is.
He is. And he doesn't have a day.
Yeah. He's my hero.
Yeah. I mean, he's killing it. Like talking about someone who's really killing it in car culture. I mean, that guy is like killing it.
Just the ideas. Yeah. One after the other.
Right.
Yeah.
He's like an idea machine, right? And he's already thinking about next year and then following year.
Yeah.
So
I think just, being surrounded by those type of people. And I think it's just, all the same for him as well. I think we all, the people that I surround myself with are similar to, mindset.
Yeah.
And the drive. With, we just kind of feed off each other. Yeah. That keeps me going. It keeps me young, kind of.
We try to, right? Yeah. So the NSX, that's a Kaido house project. What other projects are you guys working on?
Well, right now I'm just trying to send Ken off with a good car. So I've been, even last night I was working on it. But other than that, Few projects, but as far as like cars, I mean, I have few friends that I'm helping. It's not really GReddy build.
Okay.
But I mean, it's being done at GReddy, so it will be a GReddy build.
Yeah.
But few Hondas.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. But the GT-R, Carbon GT-R is still a project for this year.
Okay.
We took Sakamoto-san's Garage Active R32 that we debuted at 2023 SEMA, the blue one. So it's still here.
Okay.
So we took it to GTR Fest last November, a week after SEMA, and we went drag racing with it.
Oh, cool.
So he loves drag racing,
Right.
you know, for a beautiful car like that, and, you know, just to show the performance. So again, that also has our performance complete engine program in it. And, you know, we wanted to get it out there and show it and show the performance of it. And so we took it out. So we're kind of updating a few things, and we're going to try to, you know, go out, drag race our targets, you know, at least hit the 9-second mark, but I think it's capable of doing 8 with proper components. So we had some minor issues at GTR Fest last November, so we're, you know, doing some more updates because it was more of a kind of show car, not really full-on drag setup, you know, since, you know, SEMA 23. So we're working on that, and different setup on the engine a little bit, and electronic side. We had Motec on there, but the Atessa program side of it was still OEMs.
Okay.
So for drag racing, and, you know, since we have Motec already in there, so we're converting everything to be controlled by the Motec system. And we're going to go out there and try to, you know, make a decent run out of it. So that's one of the thing that we're working on as far as project goes.
Cool. How about SEMA show? Are you guys planning on doing?
So we registered for SEMA a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
We don't have a SEMA project, but did you see the Trust build the Toyota Soarer at Auto Salon?
No, I didn't see that.
Yeah, so it's 1985, I believe, with a 6M engine, twin turbo.
Okay.
So we might just bring that in to display, something, you know, unique, and not much, you know, people in U.S. have seen Soarer done up like that. So I think their build kind of evolved too, and they got a lot of influence for like the U.S. type build, kind of tucked engine bay, clean. Moontech did the chassis and the engine bay like shaving, and then Trust did the engine, and the, you know, it has the classic GReddy Trust 3, you know, color livery. You know, so that I felt that was pretty, you know, unique for U.S. market. So maybe we'll bring that. I wasn't supposed to maybe say that yet.
You heard it first.
Yeah, you heard
on
it.
The GReddy on the GReddy
so look forward to that, I guess. Oops. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, there's always something that pops up like last minute. Like, you know, like we've been going to SEMA since 95, you know, and we know it's coming, but, you know, just it always ends up being last minute. So who knows, maybe in September.
It creeps up on you like right away, right? Do you think they're like Japanese tuners can learn from like the American way of tuning too? I've seen a lot of like influence of like U.S. like hot rodding and tuning
I think,
being reflected.
I think definitely. Yeah, I think so. And they have been, like, for example, like Mr. Sakamoto, he gets a lot of influence from U.S. and because he builds GTRs, he's gone to Texas 2K and some of the GTR fest, even Australia. And because we still have the venue and the motorsport side, you know, it's still kept on growing, you know, 2,000 plus, 3,000 horsepower, you know, type of, you know, project cars, you know, race cars, where Japan, they don't do that anymore. So they're kind of like, if you look at Tokyo Auto Salon, the builds are still kind of like same as like 20 years ago.
Yeah, they're not as I feel they're not as like refined.
Yeah, but
right?
there's no market. There's no need for that in Japan
you don't
market.
have to. Yeah,
so they haven't really evolved too much. Where U.S. guys, no budget type builds. They just like you take it Australia. Those guys are going crazy out there. So it's like almost the rest of the world, especially U.S. and countries like Australia that there's still places to really go run the car and have that bragging rights, and they're constantly competing. So it's
competition builds right and so and develops
the products for it. So that's some of the guys that's in Japan are seeing that. So I think for us, because a lot of products come down from motorsport and trickles down to the aftermarket scene, and we have full access to that. So that's like the engine program that we have. We have access to different like aerospace type materials, to coatings, to all the technology, even down to like CNC honing machines. And like in Japan, it's still manually. They have the know-how. But the technology has moved on, and we have access to so many new things that we could. So it's starting to trickle into Japan. But when they see it and they hear the price and with today's exchange rate too, like, well, we don't need that. There's no market for it. But the guy, like serious guy like Sakamoto-san at Garage Active, they'll see that like, I want it, I need it.
Well, if their view is a little bit more global, right? They know that they have to compete in a global audience now, and not just domestically in Japan. Yeah. So I've taken too much of your time.
No problem. I mean,
this conversation can go on forever.
You're right.
It's been so fun. But lastly, we ask all of our guests, what is your creative drive, Kenji Sumino?
Creative drive. So good thing you gave me a heads up on this question, and I saw some of your podcasts, and some guys were taken by surprise. But still, like, I mean, for business side, I think just to really not say protect, but to bring something more for us to enjoy, my staff, my team, to bring something for them to be proud of. And enjoy, to have fun with, and because we're all enthusiasts before and first, and I think just that gives me the drive to bring new ideas, work with the team, and work with the right partners to make it interesting, and if through that we get the creative mind going. But personally, and as a builder, I think it's just creating. I'm never satisfied. Every time I build something, and I try my best, but then I look, even a car that I built last year, and like I look at it and like, man, I could have done that better. Then then I go out to different events, different shows. Even this week, I went to Mario Lozano's shop. I had him weld a few things, and I see his work. Like, oh, I gotta improve my welding. I'm president of GReddy, so I shouldn't be back there doing that. But again, that's my passion, right? So just trying it out, and then also maybe showing other guys how it's done. Just taking other people, seeing other people. Even after Mario's shop, I went to PEC, went to go visit Nate. And AO team was there after Long Beach, and they showed me around what they do, and just inspired by those kind of...
Nate's doing some great things at Porsche.
Top and, the top tier motorsport. And, I mentioned earlier before this, podcast, one of my favorite racer magazine was Rob Millen's Pikes Peak cars. The Celica and the Tacoma, or like the Toyota Eagle Mark III. I used to look at that and just geek over just all the little details. You got the engine. You don't get to see that in person that often. So, back then, no internet. So, looking at that type of magazine and get that influence. Like, hey, what can I do? Take that and do it on, put it on our project. just kind of trying to improve, and I guess just to leave like a legacy. I mean, I don't really consider myself the great builder or anything, but
You've done
I try
so much great stuff for the industry.
I'm just having
too,
fun,
though.
as an enthusiast, but just leaving something, as goes back to the GReddy side business too, to kind of leave and bring more
I don't think
great
GReddy
stuff.
would be here if you weren't there, though. To be honest with you, I think that they would have probably left in 2008, closed up shop. They're here, and GReddy is here because of you, Kenji.
I think it's all the team that I have as well.
Yeah, that too. But
I can't do it alone.
Definitely you can't do it alone. But like what you've done with the brand and with the company, and gone through some challenging times. It's like, they needed someone like you to really
it just kind of comes naturally too, like just feeding my passion pretty much. And that's just, I share that with my team and the partners that I work with, and we'll see how it goes.
Kenji, how do people follow GReddy and you and what you're doing?
GReddy Performance is the Instagram for GReddy, and GReddy Kenji is my personal. Pretty much our posts are similar. It's all car stuff. But yeah, that's where you could reach me.
All right. Well, Kenji, thanks so much. Congratulations on your success up until now, and
thank you.
Hope you continue on this road. Of just doing cool stuff, man. You've been just like doing all these cool things. I'm happy to call you my friend for many, many years, and I just.
Sushi at Roppongi a long time ago.
Sushi at Roppongi. I got to remember that one.
No, I'm honored to be here. Thank you for having us.
Thanks, Kenji.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching and listening to The Creative Drive, where we offer listeners a candid look into the minds of automotive creators and their journeys. The Creative Drive is available on all podcast platforms, and we have more awesome guests lined up for you guys, so please subscribe so you don't miss any episodes. If you're interested in partnering with us, or if you have any feedback, please email us at podcast@racer.com or DM us in our Instagram. The Creative Drive is produced by Molly Binks from Racer Studio, directed by TJ Keon, creative director George Tamayo, and edited by Andrew Snyder. We've got new Nick, OG Nick, and Morgan on the socials. I'm your host, Taro Koki. Thanks for watching again, and we'll see you next time.